Now there's a philosophical approach to playing a game that usually has good intentions, but what ends up happening is that it doesn't really work. In fact, most of the time, this approach will come back and bite you. And you can see this in about every sport. This happens in basketball. I hope the Nuggets don't do this tomorrow night. This can happen in hockey, this can happen in soccer, but I think it's most drastic in football. So go with me on this one for just a second. Let's just say that the Broncos have a 10-point lead late in the game. Maybe you're like, this is good. Don't act surprised, like have a little bit more hope, okay? Just go like, oh man, I like this. This is great. Okay, so they got a 10-point lead late in the game, right? And they've had a game plan that they've stuck to most of the game. They've been aggressive on both sides of the ball, which is great to see. It's awesome, but then everything all of a sudden changes. With a 10-point lead and only 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, now all of a sudden, game strategy shifts. Bronco fans, you know what I'm talking about, don't you? Man, they want to win. Don't say, oh, they don't want to win. They want to win. But now, all of a sudden, they're playing not to lose. And the way this plays out is when they're on offense, they're going to run the ball 3 times right up the middle, which the defense knows this is coming. They're going to get 6 yards, go 3 and out, just because they're afraid of turning the ball over. Then when they're on defense, they play some soft zone coverage because they're afraid of giving up the big play, but the other team just picks them apart with short passes, ends up marching down the field and scores. Then it happens again, and all of a sudden, before you even realize it, you're down with only 20 seconds left to go in the game, and they lose. Like, that's incredibly frustrating when your team does that. When they play, forget trying to win, they play not to lose. Because whenever you play not to lose, you will usually end up losing. This is a fear-based mentality that has adverse effects. In fact, being afraid of losing, that's one of the easiest ways you can come across losing. And you are gonna have opportunity for your entire life. You're gonna have opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to be afraid that you might lose something if something else happens. But if you give into that mentality, that fear will quickly start to control you. And not only will you end up losing, but you're never gonna really have any kind of freedom if you're controlled by that. You're not gonna have any kind of real life either. It's just another way to live a dead life. I mean, we opened that up last week. If you missed last week, this series in John is just building on itself. So watch later online this week. But what we kind of opened up last week was that today, there is something that's going on. There's this belief that's been going on really throughout human history. And it's even more prevalent right now. The belief is that physical death is final. And if you believe that physical death is final, then you will very easily buy into this bankrupt idea that's everywhere today. The idea is this, that since the clock is ticking, the way for you to actually live, to feel like you're living, to be alive, is for you to be as self-indulgent as you possibly can. That's how you'll actually live. Now, there's all kinds of problems that come from that logic, and much of our present culture is based on that logic. But one of the biggest problems with it is that it's a trick. It tricks you into thinking that you're actually living. Your feelings will tell you to be all about you. Your feelings will tell you be about self-focus and self-satisfaction and self-promotion. And if you buy into that bankrupt idea, if you go along with this logic, then what's gonna happen is one day when your time is up, you are going to come to this horrific realization that you never actually lived, and the only thing that you have in front of you right now is death. Now, that's a tragedy that people fall into every single day. They just find out that they've been living a dead life their entire life, that it's been empty. And every single one of us can fall into that. And if you want to know if that's you, you're living a dead life if the things you're living for die with you. If they were all about you, it's going to die with you. Now, all the self-indulgence and the self-focus that we see today, none of this is new. And it's being driven by the exact same thing that it's been driven throughout human history. Fear. I'm afraid of what I might lose. I'm afraid I might lose something, or I might lose out on something. So I better do everything I can to get mine. I better do everything I can to make sure that I don't lose. But again, if you're afraid you're gonna lose something, that's one of the easiest ways to lose everything. Like here's what I mean. Jesus just rose a guy from the dead. And we're not talking that his vitals were bad or that he just was unconscious or he needed to be resuscitated. No, we're talking dead, as in the grave for 4 days and his body is already starting to decay dead. And Jesus tells that guy he's not allowed to be dead anymore. He raises him back to life. Well, if Jesus is gonna do some crazy stuff like that, it's gonna stir some stuff up, isn't it? Both good and bad. Here's what happens next. This is John 11. Many of the people who were with Mary believed in Jesus when they saw this, Lazarus being raised, when they saw this happen. But some went to the Pharisees and they told them what Jesus had done. Then the leading priests and the Pharisees called the high council together. What are we gonna do? That's a great question. What are we gonna do? They asked each other. This man certainly performs miraculous signs. I mean, they're not denying it. If we allow him to go on like this, soon everyone will believe in him. Then the Roman army will come and destroy our temple and nation. Some translations say our place. Caiaphas, who was the high priest at the time, said, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't realize that it's better for you that one man should die for the people than the whole nation be destroyed. He was far more right than he realized. Like, he did not say this on his own. As high priest at the time, he was led to prophecy that Jesus would die for the entire nation. And not only for that nation, but bring together and unite all of the children of God scattered around the world. So from that time on, the Jewish leaders began to plot Jesus' death. Like, those are two very different responses. Very different responses to Jesus and God's glory. Like, one group of people, they see Jesus, they see what he does and they believe him and they want to follow him. And then another group of people see him and they just want to kill him. Like, believe or rat him out to stir some stuff up so they can kill him. Those are two very different responses. And the same stuff happens today. Now, there's always going to be people that believe Jesus. There's always going to be people that believe the gospel and follow him. That's always going to happen. And because of that, there also will always be people that are opposed. Belief and opposition, they just go hand in hand. Now, to be clear, people will not be opposed to a made-up Jesus. Not a Jesus made in your own image. A Jesus that does what you think he should do, that believes what you think he should believe, that affirms what you think he should affirm. People are never gonna be against that Jesus. In fact, they're gonna love him. They're gonna think he's awesome. Let's get more of that guy. Man, he makes me feel good. He tells me what I think is right. He affirms my opinion and my preferences and my desires. This dude is awesome. He's got great moral teachings and wisdom. I like this Jesus, the one that's made in your image. But the real Jesus, the real one, the one that we see in Scripture, people are always going to be opposed to him. That means anyone who follows him and believes in the real Jesus is going to face opposition too. It happened to him. He said it would happen to you. And the New Testament promises it. So if you call yourself a Christian, just expect that you're going to face some opposition. Why? Well, first, why try to kill him? I mean, they just confirmed that he did miraculous things. Like, that's pretty cool. Like, he's done some miraculous stuff. They know he's a compassionate guy. Like, I get it if he's a tool, but he's not. They're like, man, we've seen some pretty miraculous things that he does. He seems like he's a pretty nice guy, so let's try to kill him. Like, why? This is a question that you're gonna face more and more, probably repeatedly so as time goes on. Why is there opposition and even hostility to the gospel? Like, why is there opposition and even hostility to the church? And there's all kinds of reasons for that, but I think you can take most of those reasons and you can boil them down to one of three things. First, tolerance is a buzzword that has really turned into a value. I mean, is that fair to say that we live in a culture that has made tolerance a value? Is that fair to say? Would you agree with that? Now, tolerance doesn't mean tolerance anymore. It's just a code word for conformity. That's what it means. There is a demand for you today to conform to whatever the narratives, the practices, the values, and the agendas of the world are. Even if you don't participate in that, then at the very least, there's an expectation that you would affirm all of that. The problem for anyone who follows Jesus is that you cannot conform to the agendas and narratives and principles and practices of the world because they run contrary to what God's word says. Romans 12:2 says, don't conform to the world. Conform, don't do it. but instead be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Think differently about all the stuff that you see in the world. Don't just go along with it. Some translations would say that renewal of your mind is actually a way of saying turn and change around. Repent, that's what it's saying. That by testing, you might be able to discern the will of God and what is good, acceptable, and perfect. That means good, acceptable, and perfect, they're real things. Nobody's perfect, but perfection is real. Something that's really purely good, that's real. Something that's acceptable is real. But you can never know what those things are if you've conformed. If you've conformed, you'll never be able to see what is perfect and what is good and what is acceptable. But if you don't conform, that's going to create tension. And you're going to face opposition for it, which goes to the second reason. If I don't conform to the topics, talking points, narratives, agendas, principles, practices, the values of the world, if I don't conform to that, well, that's okay because there's tolerance, right? I mean, if I don't agree with something, if I don't affirm it, if I don't go along with it and do it, that's okay because we live in a tolerant society, right? That's how it works. It's not how it works. Not even close. When it comes to Jesus and the truth, there's no tolerance. The real Jesus. There's only opposition, maybe even rage. Why? Because underneath the surface, maybe conviction is starting to be stirred up. Like even if you don't say a word, you're gonna come across like you're questioning or challenging someone else. They're gonna feel that way, or they may even cause themselves to question me. I need to look at what I believe. They're gonna challenge themselves because you're not conforming. Now, people may never say that. People probably would never say that. But simply you not conforming can cause somebody else to look at themselves. Well, Matt, if you would just conform, then I don't have to question or challenge what I believe and what I affirm and what I do to see if it's good, acceptable, or perfect. But if you don't conform, then I'm starting to feel convicted. And most people don't like conviction. I'm not a big fan myself at first. Like I know that conviction's a good thing for me. It causes growth. It can be protection. It can course correct. It can help you stay on track and guardrails. Conviction is a good thing, but my first reaction is, hey, great, I feel convicted about something. Maybe you do, and you're better than I am. Most people do not like to feel convicted. And when that happens, people might not say this. Maybe they can't even recognize that they are being convicted about something. People just want to push against that. People will feel convicted if you don't conform, and if you don't conform because they're convicted, that creates tension, which is where opposition can come from. When people feel convicted, opposition comes from that, which leads to the third reason. Fear. There is a fear of what might be lost. Now, because of Jesus, because of these people that follow him, what am I going to lose? What will we as society, what will we lose? Whenever Jesus enters into the picture, there's this question that's in the back of people's heads. Whether they can realize it or not, know that it's there. The question is, how's this dude gonna change things? Now there's an accepted mantra that people don't like change. You've heard that before, right? People don't like change. It's not really true. Change isn't the problem. People are afraid of what they might lose because of the change. So fear becomes a powerful driver that can be the primary fuel for any kind of opposition or hostility. That's what's going on with these guys and Jesus. Like, what are we gonna do? They asked each other. This man certainly performs many miraculous signs if we allow him. I love that they say that about the Son of God. If we allow him, like we have a choice in this, if we allow him to go on like this, soon everyone will believe in him. Then the Roman army will come and destroy our temple and our nation. Fear was the driver. It was being driven by fear. They were so afraid of what they might lose, that drove them to try to get rid of Jesus. They just wanted him to be quiet, or they were going to quiet him. Everybody is under Roman rule in Jesus' day. That's why they bring it up. Everyone was under Roman rule. And the Romans' expectation for the Jews was to be obedient and be quiet. That was their expectation for the Jews. Hey, if you guys are obedient and you keep your mouth shut, then you're not gonna have any problems, and maybe we'll give you some freedom. That's why there didn't need to be a disturbance. The Pharisees are bringing this up. Like, hey man, if there's any kind of stir up, if we allow Jesus to keep going, if he keeps raising people from the dead, if he keeps healing people like he does, if he keeps preaching, then everybody is gonna believe in him, and that's gonna stir some stuff up. That's gonna cause a disturbance with the Romans, which will cause a chain reaction that won't be good for us. If Jesus keeps going, if these people that follow him keep going, then the Romans might come and take away everything that we have because they don't want a disturbance. That's what the Pharisees are saying. Except that's all junk. It's a bogus reason. The Romans didn't have a problem with Jesus. Later on, they would have a problem with the church, but right here, the Romans don't have a problem with Jesus. Jesus says, pay taxes. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's. Okay, cool. So we got this seemingly influential Jewish leader. He's telling people to pay taxes. We're down with that. Oh, and he's also saying, hey, don't fight back. Actually, just turn the other cheek, which just seems kind of passive, but whatever. He's not telling people to fight. He's telling people to submit. That's great. And then Pilate himself, the Roman governor of Judea, interrogates Jesus and says, I find no fault with this man. The Romans didn't have a problem with Jesus. The Pharisees knew that. So why do they keep saying he's gonna cause destruction for our place and our nation? It's because it was a cover-up. Hear me on this. People that are against Jesus and the gospel will often try to cover up their hostility towards it with an apparent concern for public good. Well, this stuff is gonna happen, and we're just not okay with that because that's not good for all people. We just have a concern for the public good. That's just a cover-up tactic. And it covers up agendas or maybe even malicious intentions. Man, if we allow this to keep going, if we allow this Jesus, if we allow God's word, if we allow the people that follow him and hold on to God's word, if we allow that to keep going, then here are all the bad things that are gonna happen. And then usually specific people groups and communities get named as the ones who will be in harm's way. If Jesus keeps going, and so do the people who hold on to the truth. It's just a manipulation and a fear tactic. That's all it is. It's to get you to take your attention away from what's really going on over here and look over there. Because what's going on in the world, the agendas, stuff that's happening, the direction that's going, there's nothing in the world that is for people, even though that's touted all the time. It's just meant to use people, which always leads to bondage and destruction. Let me give you two hot topic examples. First, sexuality. The narrative today is that Christians' view on sexuality, what they say is a biblical view on sexuality, that's just really backwards, it's archaic, and it's repressive. And because it's repressive, it's harmful to people. It's even harmful to our kids. So what we need to do as the world, we need to get to kids early and teach them the truth about sex so that they don't get repressed, so they don't buy into this biblical backwards worldview on sexuality, because that's going to hurt kids if they follow what the Bible says about sex. It's meant to scare you. It's meant to scare you so that you don't see the indoctrination, the sexual indoctrination that's happening with our kids and students today, which at best leads to destruction. Instead, maybe the biblical view on sexuality is actually meant for you. Instead, the worldview on sex is meant to use you. What we're doing right now in the world is we're taking fire and we're just throwing it out into a dry grass field. And the consequences of that we're messing with our kids, we're only starting to see the ramifications of that, and it's only gonna get worse. But painting God's word is the problem, and the people that hold on to that truth, that's just a way for them to say, hey, look over there, that's the problem, so you don't see what's happening over here. Second one, what about abortion? The narrative right now is that Christians are putting women's rights in danger. Women's rights are in danger. Well, what's really in danger? Is it women's rights, or is it little girls in the womb? What's more in danger? Little boys in the womb. Now, Christians and Jesus specifically have been about and done more for women and women's rights than anything else in human history. That's not a subjective opinion and hyperbole that I'm throwing out there. That's an objective fact that you can study and trace it all the way back to Jesus. In fact, if you are going to argue for women's rights, making that argument, you are borrowing from a value system that was set up and laid down by Jesus and then the church. Man, if you're a Christian, you better be for women, just like you better be for men. Because women are created in the image of God. We are for women, and just like we're for justice. And being for justice also includes the advocacy for innocent life. But being for innocent life and for women, those two things are not opposed to each other. Even though the narrative today paints anyone who is for the unborn as someone who's against women. You hate women. That just couldn't be more false. It's a manipulation tactic to cover up real motives so you don't see them. That's what these guys are doing with Jesus. They didn't care about the people. They didn't care about the nation. They could have cared less about any of that stuff. Man, they just cared about themselves. This was an attempt at control for their own selfish motives. That's what's going on. They were afraid that they were going to lose what they thought was a secure lifestyle and being their own God. That's what they thought Jesus was a threat to. Them being their own God, he was a threat to their power structure, their prestige, the pleasures that they valued in life. Because the Pharisees, these guys, man, they were pretty set. They had a pretty great life from a world's perspective. And they're afraid that they're going to lose that. Fear and selfishness are a powerful and dangerous combination. I mean, look at Caiaphas. The dude just straight up is willing to sacrifice another human being so that he doesn't lose what he doesn't want to lose. Guys, it's better that he dies so that, we don't lose what we have. Is that not the epitome of selfishness? So the question I'm asking myself is, does my own selfishness have that kind of control on me? Because I'm not any better than Caiaphas. I'm a selfish person too. Does it control me the same way? Or is there something that I'm afraid to lose? Or do I care more about what I think is security, even though security in this world is a myth? Do I care more about security than I do salvation? Now, Caiaphas was a real guy. He was. I've been to his house. He's a real guy, but he's also a representative. Caiaphas represents every person who will not believe in Jesus because they're afraid it's going to cost them too much. I mean, even this guy had ample evidence that Lazarus was brought back to life. Ample evidence that it did. I mean, there's a good chance he saw Lazarus. At the very least, he already heard about it here. He's going to hear the talk around town that, wait, Lazarus was in the grave for 4 days, and Jesus told him to come out of the grave, and he did. Now he's alive. I just saw him at the barbecue. That's awesome. Like, this dude knew that Lazarus was brought back to life. You would think if some guy has been dead for 4 days and comes back to life, that's probably going to change the way you think, right? You would think that. Well, let me just go find out. Even if it was a fake, he could have gone to the grave and said, you guys are all crazy. His body's right there. Even though he had ample evidence that Jesus did bring Lazarus back to life, he still tried to kill Jesus. And then he tried to prevent Jesus' resurrection with guards, as if you're gonna be able to prevent that. And then when he couldn't prevent the resurrection, he tried to cover it up with bogus stories and then recruiting people to go lie about it. Dude, this guy chose fleeting power, prestige, and pleasures over truth and eternal life. Why? Because fear and selfishness can have that kind of control over a person. Fear and selfishness can cause you not to see or experience the power of God. And if they were trying to kill, prevent, and cover up Jesus, man, the same thing is absolutely gonna happen today. Why wouldn't it? Because of fear of what might be lost, there's always gonna be people that try to kill, prevent, and cover up the truth about Jesus and the truth of God's word. That means anyone who holds on to the truth and follows Jesus is going to face opposition. It's gonna happen. Don't be discouraged by that. And also don't puff up your chest and say, let's go. Like, just pump the brakes. I'm just telling you this so you're not blindsided by it. Well, think about this. Why would there be opposition to Jesus if he wasn't who he said he was? Do you know that there were people before and right after Jesus that claimed to be the Messiah? A bunch of people did. Do you know any of their names? No, because they were fake. Why do you know Jesus' name? Because it's real. Why would there be opposition to Jesus if he wasn't who he says he was? Or why would there be opposition to God's word if it wasn't true? I mean, if this is all a joke and some made up story, archaic ideas, People just made up and wrote on their own for their own agendas. Why would it still be here? Why would it survive 2,000 years? Get this. The Bible is opposed all the time. How come you don't see the same kind of opposition to the Quran? Why is the Bible different? It's because it's true. Why would there be opposition to the gospel if it wasn't great? It is great. It is true. That's why there's opposition to it. I mean, Caiaphas calls Jesus a shot right here. He says, hey, this guy's, it's better that he dies so that all of us, all the people don't die. That dude was more right than he thought he was. Like, that's exactly what Jesus came to do, and that's exactly what he did. See, you and I have sin, like we all do. And Romans 6 says the wages of sin is death. That means because of death, because of sin, we deserve death and we're heading towards it, and there's nothing we can do to save ourselves from that. But one man came and died so that you don't have to, so that I don't have to, so that anyone who hears the truth about Jesus, believes that he is Lord, that he did rise from the dead, and confesses that will be saved. So forget playing not to lose. Don't do that anymore. Because if you play not to lose, that's the quickest way to lose everything. So let me just ask you, right now, where are you at? Are you afraid you're gonna lose something? This is for everybody. Like, I don't know where you're at. I don't know what your story is, whether you're a Christian or you're not, if this is your first time ever stepping foot in a church before. Are you afraid you're gonna lose something if you believe and follow Jesus? Maybe lose an aspect of your life or lose a lifestyle. Are you afraid you're gonna have to give something up? Now, the gospel message of Jesus Christ is not just that one man who was also fully God came and died for you. It's not just a message. It's also an invitation for you to give up you. To believe and follow Jesus means you repent of your sin and you die to yourself. The gospel is an invitation for you to give up and stop being about you, which sounds absolutely terrible if you're controlled by selfishness. But it's actually freedom. In Matthew 16:25, Jesus says, hey, if you try to hang on to your life, you're gonna lose it. If you're afraid you're gonna lose it, you're gonna lose everything. If you hang on to your life, you're gonna lose it. But if you give it up for my sake, you'll save it. The gospel is a call for you to die to yourself. That's why you cannot hold on to the world's narratives and values and agendas and practices and principles, because all of those things at their core are just meant to reinforce the lie that you are your own God. The world will make you about you, which leads to death. The gospel will make you about Jesus, which leads to life. So what do we do with it? First, you gotta die to yourself daily. Daily. This is not a one-time thing. It's every morning, man, I gotta get up and die to myself. Some days I do a better job and some days I don't. You gotta die to yourself daily, and then you get to be a disturbance. Jesus was a disturbance to everything that needed to be changed. That's why these people opposed him. So if you're a follower of Jesus, you get to be a disturbance, not a distraction. There's a difference between the two of those things. Here's what I mean. A disturbance draws somebody's eyes to Jesus. A distraction draws them away. So let me talk to anyone who calls himself a Christian. We will be a distraction, meaning we will take people's eyes off Jesus if we do things like shoot our wounded. Unfortunately, we're good at this sometimes. Man, yeah, there are consequences and there is accountability. There's consequences to sin and stupid stuff, for sure. But man, why do we lead out with kicking somebody when they're down or shooting them? Instead, aren't we supposed to just like, hey, let me try to help heal. Let me extend grace and help you walk with you as you walk towards restoration. That doesn't mean there isn't accountability and consequences. Those two things aren't exclusive to each other. But man, we're really good at shooting our own wounded. And when we do that, everybody around us sees it happen. Why would I want anything to do with that Jesus? Because the people who say they follow him, man, they just kick anybody that makes a mistake. And I've made mistakes. So when I walk in there, am I gonna get kicked? When I hang out at that person's house, are they gonna shoot me because of all the stuff I've got on? Man, we will be a distraction if we shoot our wounded. They'll look at that, but they won't look at the wounds that Jesus took on the cross. That's where we want them to look. We're gonna be a distraction if we just rant on social media. Quiet right now, right? Don't. Just stop. Man, even if you're posting something that is 100% true, nobody's listening to you except the people that just think like you. Social media is just an echo chamber. And I have never seen somebody say, oh, you believe something completely different than I do. You just made a very coherent, logical argument. I now believe the same thing. I've not seen that happen. And it's not going to. It's a cesspool. Again, you might be saying something that's right and true, but nobody's listening to it. You may say the right thing, what you say may be true, but how you say it will be a distraction. So don't rant there. Like, we'll also be a distraction if we just major in the minors. Meaning we make a really big deal out of things that shouldn't be made a really big deal out of. Instead of holding on to the few hills that we'll die on, we just create all these little anthills that we're ready to fight on. We major in the minors, that's a distraction. Or we'll be a distraction if we don't live out what we really believe. This is the number one objection to anyone who follows Christ, the gospel, the church. Man, those people are just hypocrites. Now, there's truth to that. Because what I believe, sometimes I don't live it out and I fall. But if we're constantly not living out what we believe, man, people are going to pick that up so quickly, right? Now more than ever. They'll sniff that out and say, I want nothing to do with that. If you're fake, you're a distraction. If you're authentic, then you can be a disturbance. And a disturbance gets people to look at Jesus. One way we will be a disturbance, by how we love each other. Jesus says this, right? The world will know that you're my disciples by how you love each other. If we love each other in such a humble, self-sacrificing way where we walk to the wounded, not shoot them. If we build everybody up, if we walk in humility, man, that's not common today. That's rare. That will cause people to be disturbed by that and look at Jesus. We'll be a disturbance if we're irrationally generous. Why do you guys give? Why are you so generous? Not just with your money, but your time, your gifts, your experiences. Why are you so generous? Because generosity is also something that's not seen today. Why are you generous in an economy like this with inflation so high? Like, why would you be so irrationally generous? Because our God is irrationally generous. We'll see Jesus instead. We'll be a disturbance if we're real about our shortcomings. Hey, here's where I fall. Here's where I keep messing this up. Here's where I'm not good. Here's where I need to grow. Let me just not put on this mask. Let me just not put on this illusion that I've got it all figured out and got it together. No, man, here's where I struggle. Here's where I fall short. Again, that's not talked about today. In a culture that's all about self-promotion, anybody that's about self-denial and being honest about, hey, self-weakness, whoa, what's that about? Why would you do that? Look at Jesus. Will be a disturbance when they see you growing in Christ and then you invite them in. Hey, why don't you come and see this too? Will be a disturbance if we're faithful in the midst of compromise. There's so much compromise happening all over the place today. In fact, compromise has just kind of become par for the course. But if you stay faithful and compassionate and gracious in the midst of compromise, that's a disturbance. Why aren't you conforming? And you'll be a disturbance if you take the fruit of the Spirit and you add that to the truth. The truth of God's word. God's truth is already contrary to the world. Now you add the fruit of the Spirit to that. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. You add that stuff to the truth, that will mess with people's heads. Because what people expect anyone to do that makes a truth claim is for that person to come at them with a hammer. Here's the truth, here's the truth, here's the truth. But instead, if you couple that with the fruit of the Spirit, what's that all about? It's gonna mess with people's heads. You'll be a disturbance in a good way. It'll point people to Jesus. They'll look at him and not you. Man, if we can just get rid of all the dumb distractions and become Jesus-like disturbances to a world that desperately needs and wants right now the truth and grace of the gospel, we'll win Northern Colorado. We just will. That's where transformation will happen. So now we play to win going forward. We die to ourselves, we be a Jesus-like disturbance. Watch what that will do just in your circles of influence. People will see Jesus and they'll want to hear about him too. That's where victory comes from. Man, let's pray. Man, Jesus, thank you for being a God that doesn't back down, but at the same time doesn't back down while you're cloaked with humility and compassion. I pray that you just prepare our hearts and minds. If any those in the room and everybody watching online that claims to follow you, Jesus, that we would just be so humble and ready to die to ourselves daily that when we face opposition because we hold fast to you and your truth, that man, it's a disturbance to people's thought process and belief system and experiences that causes them to look at you. Use that to draw all men and women to yourself. And we love you. It's in your name we pray. Amen.